Countdown. We're live, baby.
Oh, we're live?
We're live.
Oh my
We're
gosh.
live. Ready or not.
I missed the countdown.
Ready or not, here we come.
Here we go again on my own. Isn't it? That's an 80s song.
White Snake.
Oh yeah, of course you'd know. Of course you'd know.
They just got a short-term residency in Las Vegas, by the way. Little side note.
That is a side note. At the Sphere with Fish.
No, Planet Hollywood, I think.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever been to Planet Hollywood in Vegas. Been there 26 times. Never for personal reasons, though.
Yeah, I've been there for all personal reasons, I think, actually. Maybe a couple DJ conferences, but those turn into all-out parties. I want to say they're at Planet Hollywood. Now I'm thinking to myself that maybe it's not. It doesn't matter. Anyways, White Snake, they're coming to Vegas for a
White Snake's in Vegas. The last time I was in Vegas, and we've really grown allergic to each other. But last time I was there, we saw the B-52s. They were doing a private concert for the event I was at, and it was extremely interesting to watch the crowd because what's the only song that comes to mind for the B-52s? Of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely a one-hit wonder. There were a couple diehards, but
yeah. I think the only other songs that I Rock Lobster and then Rome, I think was like their second.
Yes.
But Love Shack. Every time I hear Love Shack, I think back to the wedding season tour of like 08, 09, where when you played that, it would hit, and now you play it, and it's like, it has to be on like a must playlist if I play it, because, anyways, I got a lot of appreciation and love for Love Shack, but it's kind of showing its age these days, at least in the world of weddings. So.
I would think so. So we've gone White Snake B-52s, and I think we should welcome everybody to another episode of Spinning Strategy, where we mix business and music from the POV of a seasoned wedding DJ, Mr. Riley Lane, and an experienced business advisor, manager, whatever I am that week. Yours truly, Jay.
I put business guru when I shared our
business
podcast.
Guru. I like
Chad, business guru Green.
I like that a lot.
Perfect.
All right. Well, how was the week for you? Any new events pop up?
Yes,
recently?
Thank you for asking. I'm in the midst of wedding season, my friend. So it's moving and grooving, and just executing weddings. It's been a ton of fun. I've been so extremely blessed with great clients who trust me, and they are excited, and they're looking at their day for all the right reasons. I think, the lesson in all of that, no matter the industry that you are in, if you are selling a product or a service, is to set those expectations as soon as you possibly can. Because when you do that, you're able to really curate the experience mutually for both you and the client, and you can just get to the heart of the experience and what it's supposed to be. So I'm very blessed to say that not only the clients that I've had thus far in April, and as we continue through 2024, they've been rock solid. So
yeah,
it's been good. How about you, sir?
Yeah, I've been having a lot of good conversations, kind of coming up to the end of kind of conference season a little bit and travel. Got a big conference coming up, and that'll be kind of end of that for a couple months. And we've been seeing some traction through that. What we represent is in kind of a different space than anybody else is there. You get a lot of technical and kind of applied, and we are just on the outskirts offering kind of business solutions and back end type of stuff. So it immediately kind of get heads turned, which I think you kind of want, right? When you're new in kind of a space, but then you've got a lot of education to do, and then that's where the fun begins. You got to follow up, and we're just getting started on that. So it's been interesting.
What are the vibe of these conferences? I guess, obviously you, I'm sure, have gone to 1,000 conferences back in the day, right? Up to today. What are some of like the differences? Whether it's like technology and how you present things? Like, just what's the vibe of these things?
That's interesting. They I've talked about this with a friend, and we've talked about trade shows in general, and they really haven't evolved to in themselves. Like, it's kind of the cost of doing business, and you have to go, but you definitely want to be presenting and on stage.
Hmm.
But the vibe of them, I would say, they kind of run the gamut. You've got the well produced big shows where you've got anywhere you're spending 10,000 to probably six figures on the show floor. I mean, I've been to one that was just blew my mind. I mean, they had furniture, they had things hanging from the rafters, uh, unbelievable. And then you've got small ones, which I was at. They're smaller, more intimate, and I enjoy those a little bit more because you get to speak to everybody. You get to see them, you get to spend a lot of time. The other ones, you've really got to be focused and and know what you want to do at it. But overall, right, you've got the keynote, you've got kind of the trade show, you've got, you can either choose to stand around and wait for people to come, or you can take advantage of the networking events. uh, I mean, you've been to them before. I don't
Yeah.
think they've evolved and changed, and I think you've definitely gotten more expensive. I will tell you
Okay.
that.
To
They
attend.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
you got all these event centers now that are kind of running the show, and if you go to a big one, all the way to where you have to use their company that they employed, and it's part of their contract, and
Oh,
so
got it. Yeah.
they're coming out and they're putting your stuff at your booth, right? You
Mhm,
have to pay for them
mhm.
to come and get it and ship it. And then there's, if you've got a corner as an example versus in the middle, you're going to pay an upcharge. If you want a waste paper basket, if you want a chair, I mean, you've probably done this at wedding venues, right? If you want a
Yeah.
fork,
Yeah. Yeah.
an
Yeah.
extra fork, it's an extra cost. And it's gotten out of hand a little bit, I think, in that regard. And the actual content of it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
And that just there's probably some disruption coming, but that's just my hot take and observation of it.
I've had the opportunity to speak at these conferences, a handful of them, and they've been a lot of fun. Um, but I can't help but think to myself when I walk into a room and you look out at a few hundred people or a couple thousand people, that you look out and you're able to kind of say, okay, well, you were forced to be here by your employer. You don't want to be here. You uh, are using this as an excuse to get out of the office, versus those that are really taking notes and they're absorbing all of the information in a way that they're looking to get some sort of return on their investment. And that's where I tend to kind of gravitate. And then when I see somebody that's really resonate, I'm sure it's the same for you and anybody that speaks to large groups of people, you're just naturally gravitated toward somebody who's like nodding their head at what you're saying, like, oh, nice, I'm gonna write that down. Oh, nice. Versus somebody who's, stand-up comics talk about that all the time when they're trying to like run these jokes, and you
Oh,
got the guy in the
yeah.
front row that's just forced to be there by his wife, right?
Yeah, I actually I sent this out. I'm headed to kind of one of the conferences I've been going to for a few years now, and I sent to a lot of my the individuals that I've gotten to know over the years, and I said, make the most out of the event this week. Here are three things I say. Number one, you know, identify one or two people that could have an immediate impact on your business. And you don't know why, you don't know how, but you definitely want to meet them. And identify maybe a service that could have one or two immediate impacts on your business. And then three, think about the things that you're having obstacles with and see if those are connections that you can talk with other peers about. And so I kind of give those three bullet points and I frame it as this way. I was like, what other place in your business would you spend thousands of dollars to attend? And
Yeah.
you would spend, days of time invested in, and show up and not know what you want to get out of the event or get out of the vendor or what have you? The answer is absolutely nowhere. You would not do that in any place in your business. And I think the default often to these conferences for a lot of people is, like you said, you're handpicked and maybe go represent us, or it gets to kind of the day before or the day of, and you show up and you're like, I haven't even looked at the schedule, or I haven't even looked at the floor, so I'm just going to kind of walk around and I have no like targeted purpose. But it takes a lot of focus, a little bit of effort for maximum result.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it.
It reminds some of these conferences in regards to those who are attending remind me a lot of like my high school pep rally the day before homecoming, and the gym is packed and the cheerleaders are putting on skits and the football players do this, and marching band comes out, da, 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 fight, 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 and then the next day they lose by 50 points. So like, it's like, no, it's like, it's cool to like clap and jump up and down and say pep rally, here we go. But then like the football team, like, again, they lose by 50. I'm not saying that was our high school, but maybe it wasn't.
I like that.
But it's just I'm not about like, what is it, the pomp and circumstance? It's like, nah, man, you gotta like, there's no matter, you go to 1,000 conferences a year, you still got to execute, man. Like, you still got to put it into action.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you're putting together probably a social media post or anything else. I mean, the 3 fundamentals probably work just as well. Like, one, I do want to be entertained. Like, I'm going to Nashville or Las Vegas or Orlando or what have you. 2, I want to be educated. And 3, I want to make really good connections. I want to build relationships. So, if you kind of check all 3 of those off, instead of just wandering around aimlessly looking for the free food and the free cocktails.
When's the after party start? Just asking for a friend.
And the other thing is, and I've learned this, and I've been victim to this, is my dad always said no good decisions can be made after midnight. And I've learned that probably a few too many times in my younger days as to becoming a pumpkin at midnight, so to speak. So definitely you can tell who is either going to maximize their event or not maximize their event by who is hanging out well past midnight and not showing up to anything the conference has to offer. So
Amen. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
That was a good question and quite the rabbit hole. Very timely, I think. But, I don't know if you saw this, but Samsung is now requiring for this year 6 days for their executives to come in. Can you imagine like that requirement? Like, I really would like to know. I'd like to be in the room where that was decided. I think that's extremely interesting from a requirement perspective. I don't know. Have you seen that?
Here's how I think that conversation went. We're going to 6 days a week. Meeting's over. That's how I think.
Like, done. Finito.
Hey guys, I mean, here's how I don't think it went like this. Hey guys, so if you can see, we got catering here, so just have a bite to eat. We're just trying to get a feel for the culture and just kind of the vibe. What are your thoughts on, you guys like 4 days a week, 5, or should we go 6? And everybody's like, well, I love the company I work. Let's go 6. I don't need to see my kids as often. I don't need to see my wife or husband. I'm ready for 6 days a week. I think it was very, Steve Jobs-esque, if you will. And yeah, 6 days a week, man. 6 days a week.
I think coming out and naming it is a bold move. Obviously, publicly traded company, kind of, things are going to get out. But the requirement is interesting. But if anybody that's been at the executive level, you really are working all the time. I mean, to do your job effectively, and if you serve, if you're a leader and a servant leader and communicating with your team, you tend to be available a lot more. You're probably traveling a lot more. There are certain levels, obviously, where you have a lot more benefits, I would say. But overall, when it breaks down to it, you're probably working close to 6 days a week. But to require it and then to say kind of, well, we want to invoke a sense of crisis because our shares are down. I just think that's a bold, interesting move, and and I was talking to somebody, I was mentioning it the other day, and they're like, well, the thing that they that the people should probably say why our shares are down is, have you ever heard of a little company called Apple?
Yeah, I was thinking that the entire time. And I don't, obviously not knowing how all of the proprietary information is swapped back and forth, but I know Apple in some capacity utilizes some of the Samsung technology in their phone. I mean, there's like these agreements back and forth. I don't know if it's like their haptic feedback. I know
Oh
Samsung is
yeah,
leading the charge on integrating AI into a lot of the things that they're doing. I mean, Siri kind of is doing that. I mean, it's only going to get better and better and better. But Samsung, I know, has been trying to be the leader in that. I think, you know, when I was reading that headline, because the way they kind of framed it is, it's like we're kind of in crisis mode, right? Like our
yeah,
sales are down. Um, we're going to go 6 days a week, and we're going to keep pushing until our sales are up. And to your point, Chad, I think when you are an executive and you're at that level, it's what you sign up for. And you're going to have to think of your business as a living, breathing thing that will consistently need different things. It's kind of
yeah,
like when your child is growing up from an infant to now being 9 years old, the needs are different. It doesn't
yeah,
mean that
yeah,
you're spending less time nurturing them. It's just a different
yeah.
type of nurture. And so, um, I was reminded, I was watching just a quick interview between JJ Redick and LeBron James. JJ Redick, I think, is interviewing
That
for a
was a
head
great
coaching job. He's
interview,
got an awesome, yeah, they're great,
phenomenal interview. Yes.
phenomenal. And he's just a basketball, like his basketball IQ is just on another level. But he was asking LeBron James, like, what does it take to be great? And LeBron James, I don't know if you saw this, but he's like, you got to be willing to sacrifice loved ones.
Ooh,
You've got like it's a very selfish route that you signed up to take. And if you don't have people around you, and I'm talking kids and husbands and wives and girlfriends, family members, if they're not along for your ride, you won't achieve the level of greatness that it takes. And to me, what I loved most about that is that, in my opinion, that is the raw reality of getting to the point of undeniable greatness. Again, Steve Jobs, kind of the similar vein of Samsung, was his leadership skills. Um, that's it's you can judge his leadership skills as far as him being very much a tyrant and a dictator. But what did Apple achieve while Steve Jobs was alive? I mean, change the landscape of everything we now use on a daily basis. So what do you want to sacrifice? You know?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of sacrifices that go, and I was just doing I did a leadership webinar with a colleague, and we hit upon a topic that I think kind of is the anti side of leadership. And it's not everybody was born to be a leader, but you definitely got to learn how to be a great follower. And if
Hmm.
you've seen some of these trends too at, like, Gen Z level, and coming up the ranks, some stats of like 40% will turn down a promotion because of what they see. And I think, if you see this as an example and you're already in that mindset or kind of in that demographic, and you're like, that's not for me, what does that say about leadership going forward? And it might mold things differently, because we're kind of in the silent generation now, and those are the
Yeah.
ones that have the most opportunities, or I would say probably the most determination to institute change, and they're going to start making some decisions and being decision makers.
Yeah. And I think as we transition to talking about startups and the percentage of startups that don't make it, to me, it begs the question. And again, this tends to happen in the event industry, right? So you have um, an individual that works for a really successful wedding planning company. Um, and they are an associate, and they're a really great wedding planner, but they're only getting like they've hit the ceiling of what they can get paid. So the planner gets paid, I'm making numbers up, 3,000. The associate planner who goes out, does the wedding, executes on a high level, very nice to people, responds to email quickly, just a great person. They make $750. Okay. And you're good for about a year or two. Now, all of a sudden, you're the one getting 5-star reviews on behalf of the company. You're the one getting praise. And now you're thinking to yourself, I'm leaving a lot of money on the table. I don't have a non-compete, which we'll talk about. I'm going to go out and I'm going to start my own business. And I've always welcomed that, because what they have to then, if they're already in that mindset of like, I don't need you, you're limiting my opportunities and who I am as a person, I want to make more money, have at it. You got to pay the cost to be the boss now, because it's not as easy as I'm just going to go and start my own thing and I'm going to make my Instagram account and people are going to cheer me on and I'm going to make a website. And that's the fun part, right? See people saying, congratulations, it's about time. Good luck. I wish you the best on your journey. And so no matter what, you have to be built a certain way and have to deal with things a certain way. Conflict, confrontation, all of these issues where you will then earn every single penny that you're worth and the value that you're providing. What is it? Elon Musk said, your income is a direct reflection of the impact you make. So
Impact
bring
you
it on.
make and solve big problems, make big money. The bigger
Yep.
problems you solve, the bigger the check should be, right? Yeah, the vanity metrics of social media have definitely made it easier to get into business, but the C has increased as far as who you're competing against. And I think you know this from your business. Just because you have a big following and big engagement does not directly translate to success and revenue.
Agreed.
There's a long bridge between that. It's kind of audience, it's reach, it's audience, it's fans, and it's true fans, right?
Yes. I wish more people would just understand, because here's what I can say: 17, 18 years of being in the industry and dealing with clients one-on-one, having to go out and execute and bringing equipment in, bringing equipment out, and changing this up and changing that. If you can just focus on taking care of your customers, everything else tends to fall into place. Opportunities start to present itself. Reviews come in, the ability to evaluate product development better, and if you're taking care of your clients, if that's your home base, if that's the foundation, then everything else can be built upon that so much easier. And what I see, to your point, Chad, with all of these social media vanity metrics, so many of them, number one, they're lies, they're misinformation. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Here's how I made $8 million on selling an ebook about how to write an ebook. You know what I'm saying? Like, either A, like, no, you didn't, or B, you were one out of a million that actually made that work. But now 75,000 people are trying to do the same thing. So you have to be so careful about what it is you're passionate about, what it is you're willing to work for, what it is you're willing to sacrifice, what could possibly be your loved ones in some capacity.
Yeah.
I loved that statement, because we live in a world where, like you say, kind of that silent generation. What do they call it? Silent quitting, right?
Quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting. Thank you. To me, it's like, what a waste of time. Like, what are you trying to prove? Unless you're in the behind the scenes building a business that you think is 10 times more resilient than the business you're working for, quiet quitting to me has never made sense. Make a move or don't. But if you're going to be in this lane, be the best you possibly can be. That's my mindset. I'm kind of old school like that. But.
Yeah. No, that I think we're kind of at that bridge from kind of the leader employer relationship, and we have a lot of access to the way people think about it. And I think there's definitely the way you think, and I think you and I have the same age. We're somewhat in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand, and we saw our parents, grind it out, and we were latchkey kids. You kind of got yourself to school. I remember I remember writing the check and just having my mom sign it so I could have lunch money. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
and she's probably going to listen to this and she's probably going to laugh. But, you know, we had a lot of responsibility. So we can kind of see that. But then we have another generation that sees, well, I may not have to do it that way, and I'm going to do it my way. And then there's going to be a whole new generation that just grew up with technology, and it's going to be like leadership. What like I just I think I don't think we can effectively predict what it's going to look like, but we've got to also understand that we can't force the way it used to be to get to where we want to go. And that's a recipe for disaster, I think, anywhere. But if we listen, we adapt and we communicate, that's how effective leadership happens.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see leaders that you don't think are like the traditional leaders because they're just going to manage in a much different way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the results will be more automated
Mm-hmm.
and maybe more. It's just it has to adapt. It's just going to have to adapt because we're living in an accelerated pace of change. That's my opinion.
I agree. Imagine if Caitlin Clark wasn't coached by Lisa Bluter and it was somebody completely different with a completely different mindset, where that coach said to Caitlin, I don't care if you're making these threes or not. Like, no, we're not taking that risk, right? Your percentage of making, like, we're not even willing to cross, like, I want you to play this way. Like, imagine if one small change in the coaching trajectory happened, she could have been a completely different player. Like, I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. Coaching has such a massive influence, specifically when she was a freshman and when she was
Yeah.
getting recruited. A coach could have came in and completely changed that up for her. So, like, Lisa, who I obviously don't know personally, her husband and my uncle were roommates in college. So I'm trying to work that connection to get Lisa on, maybe.
Work on it.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Uh, but I feel like she allowed Caitlin to just kind of, obviously had to kind of reel her in a little bit when she was getting fired up and not getting technicals.
Yeah.
But I can't help but look at that example of how you can coach / manage in the context of business top performers, right? Let
Yeah.
performers perform.
Your Caitlin Clark, your athletes, even look at kind of successful businesses. Oftentimes you ignore the flip side, right? For every great stat, there's also kind of that kryptonite stat that nobody pays attention to. Great home run hitters, the ones that achieve greatness, had the most strikeouts.
Yep.
Caitlin Clark is an example. Her turnover ratio is pretty high for a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think if you don't let that happen, you don't achieve the greatness, as an
Right.
example.
Right.
And let's say Apple didn't make the transition into the music industry. Where's that company now?
Yeah.
Right. Where is it? As
100%.
and so, but you don't see the previous, right? I mean, they ousted Steve Jobs, and he came
Yeah.
back, and he took him to the heights where he is now. And I don't think we talk about that enough in leadership, and that gets ignored. And back to kind of what you were talking about as far as like social media, you only see my success, you only see my edited pictures, you only see what I want you to see. But what I really am attracted to as far as building an authentic relationship is share with me, be more real with me, how you struggled, the authenticity. I want to hear those stories.
Exactly. You're only seeing the marathon runner crossing the finish line and putting his or her arms up, being like, I did it. And now you're like, that looks awesome. Like, I want to cross the finish line and have people cheering for me and on my pictures everywhere. Like, that's what they don't see, is that same marathon runner getting up at 5 a.m. and running when that individual is sick, running in the rain, their ankles hurt, their back hurts. You don't see that. You know why you don't see that? Because that's boring. Nobody wants to see that. That's the struggle. You don't want to see and cheer the struggle. You want to see the wins. But you can't escape the discipline. And I don't care what generation we're talking about. I don't care about the success you have from just a very like surface level standpoint, unless you are willing to go all in and get gritty and dirty, and you're going to piss people off, and you're going to say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and you're going to be up until 2 a.m. thinking to yourself like, why, oh my god, why did I send that email? They're going to interpret it like this. And unless you deal with those things and you go through it, I don't know how you're going to reach a high level of success. I don't know how you're going to do it. Maybe you will, and people are 1,000 times smarter than I am, but I think there's beauty in that grit.
Yeah, this is kind of timely. I think I mentioned I got asked to speak to 600 college athletes at my alma mater here coming up pretty soon, and they want 5 to 10 minutes. I'm the keynote, and of how college athletics kind of impacted my life.
Mm.
And yeah, there's a lot of highlights from my college career. I definitely wasn't the greatest, but at the time there was greatness there. How I plan, I was just writing this the other morning. How I plan to start this off is to tell them about, February 1998. I was at my girlfriend's, now my wife's house, and the phone rings, and it's for me. Now, if you back in 1998, you didn't have cell phones, right? And if you thought the phone was ringing for you at someplace other than your house, there were one of two things that were happening. And you either missed curfew,
Yep. Yep.
or you had to pick up your sibling from
Yeah.
somewhere, right? Those were kind of the two things. No, it was the golf coach at Mount Mercy College at the time. And he had heard through the grapevine that I was on a college visit, and I was just tagging along with somebody else who was recruited, and I didn't want to go there. It was over in Michigan, and I didn't want to do that program. And I had kind of resigned to the fact that I wasn't even going to go to college. I was going to go to community college, maybe. And that one call kind of said, "Hey, Chad, we saw you played behind a Division I athlete in high school. We saw your stats. Would you like to maybe come play golf at Mount Mercy?" And so everything kind of changed after that one phone call. It didn't get easier, but it changed my perspective of, oh, now I have to actually put in work because I'm a college golfer. What?
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever told that story to anybody outside of my family. Now I've probably told it to a lot of people, but I think that's what I'm going to hopefully resonate with them, is kind of that backstory where I was not a college athlete and had no purpose, was not going to be one. But lo and behold, now I'm part of the Mount Mercy Hall of Fame for golf.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Everything counts. And this is, I'm big, and I'm going to say it right here, folks. I'm big into professional wrestling. All right. My name is Riley, and I watch professional wrestling. WWE, baby. My son's addicted to it, and my daughter loves it too. I just bought tickets for a live event in Illinois. So there's that. Their first live event. You got to do it, man. They're only young once. But anyways, there's kind of a commentator or a wrestling analyst is what I wanted to say. And he talks about the storylines that the WWE and the creative department develop. And what they talk about in the writer's room is that everything counts. Everything counts. Just the little things here, the little things there, what that person said in their promo, the way this person comes out for the entrance, the way they switch. Everything counts as we go into the next stage of the storyline. And with the story that you just told about getting that phone call, think about all of the little things that you did throughout your high school career that led up to that phone call. Everything counts. Everything counts.
Yeah. No, that's, I think something to end on is talking how everything counts transition to startups. We kind of hit upon that. So the stats are crazy. Somewhere in the tune of, in 2023, 3,200 plus startups failed, which was about a 95%. It's like clockwork every year. And
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to a few over the past few weeks, and there's definitely a lot of energy and a lot of, pizzazz in a startup.
Oh yeah.
But you also know that it's a long road to climb, and there has to be not only execution uh, and a little bit of luck. They have to make their own luck, and timing and persistence. But most of the startups, in my opinion, will fail because they either they don't set themselves up the best, or they quit right at the moment when it's going to get good.
Right. Exactly. I
Right?
think that's the vast majority. 100%
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah. So I want to know. So you've started a few businesses, right? You've
Mm-hmm.
trusted. You've gone all in on yourself. Some have been great. Some haven't worked. Some
Mm-hmm.
are in kind of the process of how do we make it work. Let's think back to, I think, Ann and Ellis. That's probably a good
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
Because you migrated from, I don't know if we've ever really told that story a little bit, but you migrated from just being considered a wedding DJ and then
Mm-hmm.
kind of going into consulting. And then I remember you talking about this, and I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, I don't understand this. Like, this is a need. I mean, we didn't have anybody help us. We just called the Shriners and had a reception and lined up some beer
Apparently.
and called it good.
Yeah.
Right? What do
Yeah.
you mean you're going
Yeah.
to consult on
Mm-hmm.
weddings and events, and you're going to bring in a partner? Like, who's going to pay for this? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? And I mean, obviously, prove me wrong, right? But prove me right. I don't know, one of the two. Talk about that change, because I knew it was scary for you,
Mm-hmm.
because the lights are kept on in one, and you're really, really good at it. But you're like, I know I'm better, and I've seen a lot, and I have a lot more value. But
Yeah.
not everybody believed in it.
Yeah. Have you ever like been laying in bed and you just can't stop thinking about a problem in your gut and in your heart you can solve? All you need is just pressing the action button. Like, I mean, have you ever had like that feeling just enter into your body and you're just like you become obsessed with it and just kind of
I think if you're
addicted to
fortunate enough
changing
in your
something
life,
in
yeah, if you're fortunate enough in your life to get to that point,
yeah.
yes, that's a
That that
great
that kind
blessing to have, but it's also a curse.
Yeah, oh, 100%, 100%. Um, that's what it was for us, and without
Okay.
going into a 25-minute, 30-minute story of why we did what we did, we disrupted an industry, trust me, and we pissed a lot of people off. Be for and I don't say that in a way to sound rebellious and like, but look at us
No.
now. I'm not trying to compare us to like what Ubers did to like taxis. I'm not saying that, but we changed the way clients find vendors. And
Mhm.
we were met with a ton of resistance from vendors that felt like they didn't need us. And some of them didn't, but a lot of them did. And a lot of the ones that said they didn't need us are now on our team. And at the heart of what was keeping me up at night is that I knew that the client experience could be better. It wasn't about me making more money or my business partner, Megan, making more money. It wasn't about market share. It wasn't about ego. It was about, man, the client experience is freaking broken. Why are we still doing things in such an antiquated way? And many, many, many sleepless nights, and me waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and writing notes down and just chasing this idea. And then Megan and I both were feeling that same thing. And so we collectively put our heads together and we started kind of a pilot program at her venue, Ashton Hill, and we just ran it internally. We didn't market anything. We didn't have social media accounts to like say, here's us and we're launching and here. Um, in full disclosure, we were doing a lot of this stuff during COVID, where the tours that were coming in, like they didn't
Yeah.
quite know when their wedding was going to be, but they knew they wanted to seize an opportunity. And so we were running everything internally and it was working. And I will never, ever forget when one of the clients that went through our process I actually ended up DJing her wedding as well. Um, After the wedding was done and I'm tearing down, putting my speakers on my cart and getting ready to hit the road, she came up to me and she said, I just want you to know that your process works. We had 70% of our wedding planning done within 2 weeks. So whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. And that's all I needed because again, it solved my problem, right? Like
Yeah.
the client experience was broken. I have at least one client that said, your process works. That's all I needed. The grit and the work ethic and like, like I can handle that. I don't care about that. What I care about is how to get more people on board to believe in the process. But that's where over the last 5 years, that's where I've learned so much about myself, Chad. Like, I don't like to manage people. Can I lead people? Sure. But can I manage people? No. I think there's a big difference. And I just get more
Yeah.
frustrated with individuals that don't want it as bad as I do. So you cut to today, I've trimmed a lot of the fat out of my life as far as who I work with and how I
Yep.
work with them and scheduling time with them on a calendar. Everything has changed. But again, I think you have to just kind of go through that to recognize the problem, truly seeing it if it's in your heart to like, are you the one that will commit and sacrifice enough of your life to solve this problem? I think a lot of startups, and I don't know much about like the tech space and like how software startups work. I come from more of kind of a primitive level of, you know, your basic startups and having a pretty decent business plan that maybe you can get financing from a bank and what's your income stream look like. Uh, I think all of those things can look really great on paper, but what you can't plan for is what you're going to be met with along the way. The work life balance to me has always been, let's make believe your business is running great, but God forbid your child gets sick or, you know, you've got a massive leak in your roof on a Tuesday morning and your water heater broke. And like all of those things are going to set you sideways. And if you're over there the whole time, you've got to have the ability to go back and forth and do that with a really clean mindset. And that's where I think a lot of people struggle. And then they go to Instagram and try to get inspired, but all they're doing is seeing a lot of,
Yeah.
here's what I did. Okay, well, I'll do that. And for this much money, you can do it too. Okay, I'll do that. So they kind of chase it's like the whack-a-mole, right?
I think one observation I've had over you, the number of years that I've observed is, and take this in a good way, is, what is Riley up to next? And I
Right.
think if you translate that to kind of the grit, is you're not afraid to latch onto an idea and start executing first. And then, but the beauty of that is you try it and you're like, okay, if this doesn't stick, I'm really, really good at this one skill. And you've separated your ego enough to be like, that is always going to be there when I want it.
Right.
I take DJing for example,
For sure.
but one of these other things is going to be really successful. And if I don't at least try it and execute on it first and make a ton of mistakes and then figure it out, what am I even doing? And that takes a really strong person inside to be able to do all of that. And
Yeah. Thank you.
that's my observation.
Well, I appreciate those words
Yeah.
very much, specifically coming from you.
And I think
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to weave in this quote because I saved it specifically for this. Is this quote I heard the other day? It says, "Where am I allowing a lack of consistent execution to hold me back?"
Yeah, it's good.
I mean, think about that. That is the epitome of whether and it's not the goal, right? It's the process and systems of consistent exection. The goal
Mhm.
will come, and we just don't know when it will.
Yeah.
And James Clear kind of says this very well as, he's like, everybody, when they line up for a 100-yard dash in the Olympics, they have the same goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to win, right? And
Yeah.
get the gold medal. But not everybody on that, there's only gonna be one person that hits it.
Yeah.
And it's not because they didn't have the right goal. It's because they didn't allow consistent execution throughout their
Yeah.
process, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a fact of the matter.
Yeah. I I agree with that. And in the world of business, it's that whole I would rather be first and wrong than second and irrelevant.
That hits hard.
I always love that. I'd rather be first and
First,
wrong
wrong.
versus second and irrelevant. Because let's be honest, the first person that gets it right, it's only a matter of time before everybody follows. And now they're chasing the market leader and it's harder and harder to gain relevancy. Right. And so I've always been, for whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know why. I ask this question all the time to the greater powers than what we can see and feel and touch. Why am I so ambitious? Because being ambitious isn't like a badge of honor all the time. It can come back and just, I mean, you look back on things that you were like, it's blind ambition sometimes. And that's a fault of mine personally and professionally. And I think it's so important to have people around you that are honest enough to say, what are you doing, man? Like what is the best outcome that could happen? And then you start to like say it out loud and you're like, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
That's been me in so many instances, but it's allowed me to kind of fail forward and say, okay, well, that didn't work, but we can have like an iteration of this, work our way into this. So ambition is a beautiful thing, but so is intelligence and so is logic. And emotion has to kind of live in there somewhere. And that's what I respect so much about you. I mean, you're a guy, you're 100 times smarter than I am, Chad. Like that's just,
Oh
and
my
I'm not
gosh.
trying to be like comically self-deprecating. I don't mean for it to be that way, but like truly, you're a very smart guy. You're very analytical. You can interpret things much differently than I can. I'm a guy that has just led with a lot of heart. And it's a lot of fun to do that, but it can make things harder. But I don't regret anything. And I mean I've sold services and products just on passion alone. Like just on passion alone where clients can feel that and they believe it. And they know I'm going to execute for them. Like I'm going to give everything I have to everything. I will give you everything. Just believe in this versus saying, and here's how the forecast would work. And, it's like, I'm just not that guy, you know?
Here's how I view your last statement, right? Is the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
What's that?
Knowledge is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing that a tomato does not go in fruit salad.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
a great one. That's
the difference right there. So
that is a great one.
Well, let's wrap this up. What are you currently obsessed with? What is going on in that obsession mind of yours that's keeping you up at night?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned it during the podcast. Everything matters. Everything matters. I think about that a lot when I'm going to the gym on days I don't feel like going, when I'm turning down just junk food, or I tend to work late, and which I love. I love working at night. Like that's just
You
what I
are
do.
opposite of me, my friend.
Yeah,
Oh my
I
gosh.
wish I could be a morning person, but it's just
Well,
not who
that's
I
a
am right now.
DJ. That's a
Yeah,
DJ
100%.
night owl
Yeah.
coming out.
And every time, whether again going to the gym or choosing what I eat, everything counts. Everything matters. So the little things. So it's focusing on all of the little things, even though you're not seeing an immediate result, that with consistency and discipline you will. And it's controlling the things that I can control. I've really been into figuring out what my body responds to, as far as like the workouts that I do and the things that I eat, like what makes me feel really good versus what makes me feel really bad, and really going slowly, but every day, to try to optimize the way that I feel. Yeah, everything counts. Everything matters. How about you, sir?
I was trying to think of what really is moving the needle in my world. And I think it's that last quote about what am I lacking in consistent execution that tends to be holding me back. And, so it's those non-negotiables on a daily basis and clearly identifying those and eliminating everything else. If you have to do this one thing, and I heard a great statement by an entrepreneur that said he creates a separate folder for all of his clients, and he himself is a client. And he says, if I am not serving myself, would I fire myself?
Yeah.
If I was my own client, would I fire myself
That's
for
great.
everything that I'm preaching to clients? And that has rung with me for about 2 weeks now, and I can't shake it. It's like, okay, I am a client of myself. And would I fire myself if I acted this way?
Yeah.
If I didn't serve myself this way. I just think it's very interesting.
That's great. Doing that self audit is so important. And so many people don't. They just don't. They serve so many people around them, but they ignore themselves. And that's where you start getting sick. And stress will create like stress absolutely kills. It does. And it doesn't matter what money you're making if you feel like crap the entire time. Everybody around you's like they're singing your praises, but then you go home and you're just feeling miserable, mind, body, and spirit. So I think we're kind of saying the same thing as far as what we're into. So that's
agreed.
Great alignment. Great alignment.
Great conversation. This is always the highlight to converse with you. So another great episode of Spin and Strategy. My name's Chad Greenling.
And I'm Riley Mullane.
And we will see you next time.